What's up? Welcome to Defense Matters, where we are talking mostly IDP, all fantasy football. I'm your host, Jordan Rains, at 50 Shades of Drunk, if you want to find me on Twitter. And it's midway through the season, so today or tonight, whenever you're listening to this or seeing this, we're going to do something different than the IDP rankings. We are going to have some special guests with some special friends from a special league. Guys, go ahead and introduce yourselves to the folks.
All right. So my name is Marvin Elquin. You guys can find me on Twitter at @FF_MarvinE. Otherwise, you guys can find all my stuff on Dynasty Nerds and at the Fantasy Footballers.
And I'm Jake Trowbridge, at Jake Trowbridge, appropriately on Twitter. I'm the co-host of Drinking and Talking Fantasy Football, which you can find on Twitter at Drinking Fantasy.
At Drinking Fantasy. Wow. That's got to be a hot commodity in the Twitter world.
Yeah, I feel like when I got, like somebody bought Google accidentally before Google launched, just because it was a goofy name. I feel like I'm sitting on a gold mine.
You are. Just wait. Just keep waiting. The equity is just building and building and building.
That's right.
I love it. Well, guys, we are going to talk tonight about our IDP Army Invitational League. I set it up this summer. If you guys follow me on Twitter and all that, you kind of probably know about it. But basically, the goal of this league was just to set up and get some people that do not play or have not experienced IDP into that side of fantasy. In a fun, environment where they could compete with each other and learn about it and see if they enjoyed it. And if they did, hopefully we can get some new converts, that starts coming up in casual conversations, and then more people play IDP, and then this will all be worthwhile someday. So that's kind of the goal. And we got some things we're going to talk about tonight. But Marv was on with me a month or two ago, right before the season started, and we talked about how the draft went and kind of like everybody's rosters and all that. But how have you found the league so far? Just we'll start with Marv, then we'll go to Jake. Like, what are your general thoughts?
Yeah, it's been good so far. I love the challenge of just having 9 additional player slots to fill every week. It's definitely a challenge to find the depth and kind of find the balance between rostering enough offensive players and defensive players, especially now with bye weeks and concerns with COVID and all of that. So it's been a good challenge. It's fun to just have this added element to football where you watch, like you watch any game, you're not just paying attention to the running backs with the wide receivers. You're paying attention to the guys tackling them, the guys sacking the quarterback. So it's been good. Definitely enjoyed it so far, and looking forward to the next however many weeks we have left, hopefully into the playoffs. If I make it there, we'll see.
I know it's kind of competitive. I know Jake, me and you are all kind of looking like we got a shot. How do you like it, Jake? You beat me last week. You were all like, "Oh, I'm not going to win." I was like, "Don't give me that crap."
Look, I didn't want to bring it up here tonight, but I'm glad that you did. I started so terribly in that league. I started with 3 straight losses, and every one of them looked just awful. And I was like, I just don't understand IDP. Like, this is not going to be a thing that I'm capable of. And eventually, luck just kind of won out on my side. But it's been really fun, like truly fun. It's certainly more complicated, and it mostly just because you have so many extra slots, like Marvin was saying, that you have to worry about week in and week out. And it made the waivers a lot more fun for me. It just, you're tracking so much more. There's a lot more opportunity to get involved in the waivers, I felt like. And man, it's just nice to watch a game and you're paying attention to jersey numbers on the defensive side. Like, I've never, ever done that before in my life. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden I was like, wait, is that? Oh, that is Buddha. Like, get really excited to see those guys pop off.
You did have Buddha last week, didn't you? You completely slaughtered me. That was unreal.
He had a good week.
Yeah. Dude, he finished back-to-back number 1 overall defensive back this last week and 2 weeks ago. So I got a show that I do for Dynasty Nerds, and when I go over my next rankings update on the consensus for Dynasty, Buddha's going to number 1 over Jamal Adams, which is a big deal for me because I've been a Jamal Adams stan like so hard, but Buddha's just, he's leveled up this year. He's, I know you guys like, this is your first year, but he was good last year. But he's a total savage this year. He got paid and he's playing big. So, well, okay, here's a fun question. And I just looked, Jake, you have 2 guys in right now. You have Tahir Whitehead and Keanu Neal in this game. He had a big game last week. Who's your favorite IDP player on your team currently? I guess we'll go ahead and go with Marv first and then switch over to Jake.
Yeah, so I debated a couple guys here. I thought, Jalen Smith, my first IDP pick, gotta love him. One of the most productive guys on my team. But I might actually go with Zach Cunningham, the linebacker for the Houston Texans. And part of that is just the mixture of value and production for him. He's third in solo tackles at 44, fifth in assisted tackles, 2 sacks. Looks like he's linebacker 7 right now in our scoring format. So he's been really productive, and I got him as my 5th IDP pick. So I just love the value from that, plus the production. He's actually outproduced currently Jalen Smith from a fantasy points per game perspective. So love that. And he's kind of been a rock on my fantasy team and in my lineup for ever since the league started.
Nice. Yeah, he's a massively underrated kind of player. He's not like a cool shiny name, but he's a go-getter. He led the AFC in tackles last season, I believe. So he's a hitter.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Jake? I'm sure you're going to say Budda Baker.
Well, I'm going to purposely not say Budda because I feel like that's almost cheating at this point. I don't want to harp on Budda, but I mean, yeah, Budda for sure. But very close behind him, honestly, for me is Bobby Wagner. I love having him, linebacker for the Seahawks. And the dude is just my kind of consistency. Like, that's what I always strive for in all of my leagues, is finding a consistent plug and play guy who's never going to goose you, who's never going to steer you wrong. And he doesn't flash, but he's gotten me, I think, at least 15, 16 points every single week. And that's an amazing floor to just have and be like, I'm set in this position and I'm done. I'm done until he's on bye or gets injured, basically.
Yeah, that is an awesome feeling. He's kind of like the guy on the offensive side. I always look at that like is Kelsey. It's like all the leagues I have Kelsey in, I just like forget I have Kelsey because I don't ever even look at it. I'm just like, it's fine. Everything there is fine. Like, let's just keep rolling. So I love that pick. I love both those picks. And Budda, I mean, we can talk about Budda all day long. I mean, like I said, he's moving up my rankings big time. He came into the season. I think I had him at 2 coming into the year. He was already good, but man, he's really leveled up. I'm mad that you have him in that league. We might have to talk about him later.
I remember during the draft, of course, I'm such a noob to this. I was like, he looks reasonable to take here. And I believe it was you that commented right away. I was like, shit, that was going to be my next pickup.
Yeah, because you picked like right after me. I'm pretty sure I looked at him and I was like, he won't take him. And then
because we had like that short turn, me and you coming back. And it's the only time I think I sniped anybody in that draft. And it was purely based off of luck.
Great snipe. I want to see I want to see that luck just keep rolling for you. All right, what we got here? Next question we have has playing IDP changed the way you guys watch football? Marv kind of alluded to it, but like I know for me before and even now, I mean, it's always offensive focus. Even I don't know if you guys noticed on Sunday night, or was it Sunday or Monday night when they came into the game and they talked about Chicago's defense, and I forgot who was even talking. Was it Troy or whatever? But he even said like, "Oh, we're going to talk about the defense first." And I was like, why does that have to be like a taboo thing to like talk about this half of the team? Like those guys are really important. He was like, well, we're going to talk about the defense first, almost like it was a bad thing, because the Rams offense has been, not exactly, monstrous like it was 2 seasons ago. And the Bears are the Bears. So, Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack, those are kind of your big talks. Those are kind of the faces of those teams right now. And I was just like, I feel like, why are you doing this? Like, why do you want to make it like a bad thing? So it definitely changed the way I watch football. Like it makes it more normal for me to watch the game of football, like the whole thing. Like I'm watching both sides of the ball. Like I see who's in the backfield and immediately my eyes look the other way. Like I'm okay, like who's lined up where? And then I'm looking the other way to see, okay, if this ball goes here, what does that mean for me? And who should I be watching? But has it changed the way you played it? Marv, earlier you alluded to it, but if so, like specifically, like kind of how has it made you engage in the game more?
Yeah, definitely just... Yeah, you mentioned it. I'm definitely more engaged in watching some of these games because it almost feels like I have a player in every single team. On offense, I might not have someone on the Jets, probably not on any of my fantasy teams, but I might have their linebacker, right? Or I might have their safety. And then in that case, I have a skin in that game. Like it actually matters to me what happens in that game. And if they're scoring and they're moving down the field, and we're racking up tackles, and that actually helps me. And, from a fantasy perspective, it's kind of nice to have just, if I, in our league, I have Joe Mixon, who's kind of been disappointing in some weeks. But but the good thing is you have defensive players who could blow up as well. And you have more players who can offset some of the disappointments on offense, on your wide receivers or your running backs. So it's just kind of nice to have just I guess it's a more holistic view of football, and just having more guys on more teams that just, you're just invested from Thursday all the way to Monday night in some cases. And it's just kind of fun to watch football and enjoy it in that way.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Jake? Has it made you engage or watch football differently, having, IDP players in the game?
Yeah, absolutely. And it doubles your involvement naturally. I mean, it just does, because your eyes don't take snaps off anymore, which would be the case for me a lot of the time. Like, even if it's a gross game to watch, and you'd have to hope that, all right, I have one of the good wide receivers in this game or whatever. It's just like, even bad games just get so much merit for me now, because they're, like Marvin said, like, there's always somebody there to kind of root for. And the other thing is, yeah, I've played in leagues that have general defense, and that's kind of being phased out a little bit, especially as you kind of go up into some of these more elite level teams and leagues. But, like, I've never been so excited to watch a swatted ball in my life. Like, those things matter now. It's not just sacks. It's not just interceptions. Those are so great, and I love to see them, don't get me wrong, but there's so much more that I'm paying attention to now. And yeah, it's like those little mini fist pumps that I get to do because somebody just swatted a ball away, and I never would have done that before.
Yeah, I agree. And it makes you think about things too. Like, you see like tackles for loss, and you're like, that is like a big play, because they move the line of scrimmage backwards. Like, how do you do that? You get a sack or a tackle for loss. Like, there's only a handful of guys that can move the offense in reverse. Like, and it makes you think about the game of football. Like, okay, now the down and distance is, 2nd and 17, and you start to see like, wow, like that play is going to influence this drive massively, and it should be, awarded, and it should be recognized. And in fantasy football, it should be something that we should root for and engage and give players props for. So yeah, I agree with you guys. Like I said, it changed the way I start watching football, definitely. So I'm glad you guys have had a similar experience. Who is your guys' favorite defensive player before IDP? It might be the same guy, but like, who do you guys just like love on defense, like right now to watch? Go Marv first.
Just in general on my team, or
just in all football, just like right now, like, who do you like to watch play defensively? Like, even if they're not on your team, like, who do you like engage with before even IDP? Yeah. Like, who did you engage with on the screen defensively?
Gosh, that's a good question. So I love watching Aaron Donald play. If I had to choose one from my team, so I'm a Packers fan. I love Jair Smith, just super energetic guy that just brings a lot of energy on the field and just joy to watch. But outside of that, it's got to be Aaron Donald. I love watching him play. Sometimes he just makes it look so easy. He's just pushing guys around, but he's just so dominant. He's just that good. And it's awesome to see someone like him, someone as dominant and as generational, to see him play and be watching when he's active and playing. And it's just he's that good. So you kind of just are in awe at those players, some of those generational guys, to see them play. So he's definitely one of my favorites.
I have to second that so hard. It's just, there's like a smoothness to that guy that's always been really fun to watch. It's it's so effortless.
Yeah.
Obviously it's not, because he is putting forth 100% effort at every play, but it just feels that way. Like, you watch some of these running backs that do that and they just make it look so easy. And he has that same kind of deal on the defensive side. And so it's a natural like attraction to somebody who's that fluid and that disruptive. It's amazing. I do have to also go with the homer pick. Marvin, I didn't realize that you were a Packers guy, or I forgot. I should have noticed, because you have a Devontae jersey hanging back.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So as the homer guy, of course, before I get into IDP, I'm watching Packers games more often than not. So the guy that I've been most excited about lately is Jair Alexander. He's just I'm excited for him as a potential shutdown cornerback. Not just selfishly for the Packers, but just because it's great to see somebody assert themselves with that kind of dominance. And he's not a super tall guy or anything, but just he does everything well. And it's cool to see him shut down some of these really top wide receivers.
Yeah, the Packers have in the past traditionally been a little bit struggled in that department. So, but yeah, that is good. I always love, when teams, it's funny, when teams bring in a guy or get a guy that does that. It's funny, the Rams 2 years ago, where they have Marcus Peters, and they got rid of him. They brought in Jalen Ramsey, and now this other guy that the Rams have, apparently this guy they drafted is like super good too. Which I'm just like, man, some people it's like an abundance of riches. Aaron Donald, Jalen. We didn't even tell me Jalen Ramsey's on the same team as Aaron Donald. Like, hold up, what? Like that's scary. Mm-hmm. Rams should be better. What's the deal with the Rams? Like, what's going on here? Pick a running back, hand him the ball.
Yeah, seriously, get Henderson some more run, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, yep. Cooper Kupp, I don't know. I have only one share of Cooper Kupp, just as an aside here, and he hasn't done anything for me. And is that like a thing? Like, what are we feeling about that?
I was personally nervous coming into the season. I pivoted towards Robert Woods because, again, I'm a consistency guy, and I just want like that Jarvis Landry, Jamison Crowder, like those dudes who just like are locked in for targets. And I was a little nervous about Kupp with the tight end usage, but it doesn't even feel like the tight ends are the problem there. It's just confusing.
It's just, I don't know what's happening. Like, I just don't understand. Like, they win, but I'm like, who's scoring the points on this team? Like, I guess Malcolm Brown is just quietly actually just scoring everything. I don't know. Their kicker? I don't know. That's crazy.
Yeah, it kind of feels like they all, I don't know why. I have one of my teams actually have both Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, and I was like, oh, I feel good about this. One of them's going to blow up. The other one's not going to do anything. We'll be fine. It'll even itself out. But there are times when it just feels like there's not enough volume even between the two. Like they're just, but by the end of the game, they bring in fantasy points, but it's not anything that blows you away, right?
It's not what you want. And we're halfway through the season, and it's like, give me at least like one game where I'm like, all right, like there's the ceiling. But it's just like, I don't know. I'd have him on my bench right now. And like I said, it's the only one league, and I just figured I'd ask you guys because I have you here. So but it's definitely a weird offense. Apparently the Curtis Samuel breakout game we've all been waiting for is happening right now. I don't know. This is insanity.
It's bumming me out. It's bumming me out hard as somebody who was all about the DJ Moore resurgence. I got really excited, and I was like, oh, well.
DJ Moore is still fine. He's good. He's good. I'm happy. I mean, I have Curtis Samuel all over the place. I'm glad he's finally doing something. Jeez Louise. He kind of reminds me of Deebo Samuel in a certain type of way. If you look at the way they play and their box scores from last year, they were very similar. But we won't get into that right now. All right. So let me see. Next thing I was going to ask you guys, have you had like a favorite play yet this season, like defensively, like a moment that really stuck out to you? I'll go ahead and just speak to mine first. Montez Sweat, I don't know if you guys have either of you roster him in that league or not. I think I have him in that league. But he had a really awesome play 2 or 3 weeks ago for the Redskins. He ran down Cam Akers. I don't know if you guys saw that one big Cam Akers play. I guess that was 2 weeks ago where he ran down the sideline for about 30 yards. Montez Sweat like ran him down, and I was like, oh dang, like he had like a 5-10 yard jump on him too. It was kind of crazy to watch. In the same play, you can see Chase Young slowing down, so that really kind of hit me right in the feels. So it's like, dude, but he's kind of hurt right now, so I don't know. But that's been my favorite defensive play of the season so far. But do you guys have one, or just I figured I'd ask?
I don't know if I have an actual necessarily a play. I was looking through some of the top performances over the last couple of weeks, and one of the guys that he's kind of a young, he just got drafted, Patrick Queen on the Baltimore Ravens. Just kind of he's a stud, right? And he's been racking up the tackles, the sacks, and he's just all around. He's just everywhere, really. And I remember was a week 5 against Cincinnati. I think he was the third highest scorer in our league in IDP 123 scoring, and he had 6 solo tackles, 3 assisted tackles. He forced 2 fumbles. One of them went for a touchdown, and they shut down the Bengals, right? I think they only scored 3 points in that game. So it was just a great performance from the defense in total, but then just coming from him being a rookie, man, that's just crazy. And yeah, awesome performance from him.
Yeah, that was a monster game. That kind of hurt me too because I was not a big Patrick Queen shill over the summer. I was kind of a fade, so egg on my face.
Was it for you? Because I'm always curious now. Like when I look at the draft and post draft guys for offense, is the same deal for you? So like he went to the Ravens, and was that why you were down on him, or were you already down on him before that?
I was already down on him before that, just because at LSU, my argument was this. He wasn't overly productive at LSU, and everybody had rose-colored glasses on for every LSU player coming into the season. And I was like, this guy could literally suck, and we wouldn't even know because everybody coming out of LSU is amazing. I mean, that was the narrative. It didn't even matter. So I was like, he wasn't nowhere near as productive in college as Kenneth Murray, who I was obsessed with, and Isaiah Simmons, who I was obsessed with. Isaiah Simmons, jury's still out on him because he does have two guys in front of him that are getting paid. So it is going to be harder for him, a rookie, to get on the field. That just makes sense. I don't call him a bust yet. Kenneth Murray is playing well. And if Patrick Queen wasn't literally playing lights out, like Kenneth Murray would be a bigger deal. But Patrick Queen, yeah, he's been a super stud, and I definitely missed on him. So I don't own him. I don't have him anywhere. It feels terrible. So what about you, Jake? Any performances or any moments this season where you were like, oh hell yeah, like that's what I'm talking about?
Yeah, man. I hate to bring it up again because it's another Budda Baker thing, but like, and everybody's been talking about this play too for a different reason, but it's the interception that he had this last week where he then eventually got chased down by DK Metcalf. And of course, everybody's focusing on the DK part of it, which they should, because that was insane. The fact that he turned into a defender and just shotgun down the field to catch up with him was incredible. But if that was not DK Metcalf, Budda was to the house on that play. Yeah. If that was anybody but DK Metcalf in the world, I didn't think he was getting that touchdown. And it was so, I don't know, it was great to see for me personally having him on our roster. But then, like, I don't know, to see DK, it's like, oh man, that guy would have made a really good DB. Like, he would have been good. DK Metcalf would have been great on the defensive side too.
Oh, dude, he's a physical specimen. Yeah, that's a big play in IDP 1, 2, 3. I think a pass deflections 3. You got that, an interception 6. Then he went back 90 yards, right? So that's another 9 points. I mean, you went up over me, or I don't know if that was last week or 2 weeks when I played you, but whoever you went up over, that was like an 18-point play. Like, that was like a Derrick Henry like touchdown-esque kind of play, and he was only 10 yards away from a touchdown. I mean, that would have been another 6, 7 points because of the yardage. I played against, and of course, this is my luck. I played against Budda in like 3 leagues. So I was just like, as much as I love to see it, I hated it. I was like, this is terrible.
Absolutely. That's the worst emotional swing if you're on the other side of that. Oh, yeah. Brutal.
Yeah, I had my buddy hit me up. He was like, I'll trade you Budda. And I was like, well, let me think about it. And then Budda goes off. I'm like, well, that conversation's over. I'm never getting Budda now.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, waiver moves of note that you guys have made this season. Anybody you've picked up where you were like, you draft somebody like, this guy sucks, and you picked up somebody and like, hell yeah, like this has been awesome. Anybody like that in that league so far, IDP wise?
Let's see. So I know I picked up Josh Jones a couple weeks ago. One of the leaders in tackles, just in general, solo tackles, assisted tackles. He's racking up that, and he's just been on the field a lot. And what's interesting is I remember when he was a Packer, he didn't really honestly do all too much there. But now he's with Jacksonville, and he's getting the opportunity, and he's producing. And so he's not necessarily a guy that I am starting all the time, because I don't think he's one of the, he's probably more of a flex safety DB, and but he's someone I can rely on, especially this week. I think I have 5 guys on bye, so trying to scramble to get a lineup in. But so he might actually be on bye too. But just in general, just having that depth, finding a guy who can consistently get me 10 to 15 points is valuable.
Yeah, that's a great pick too, because he's on nobody's radar coming into the season. Because Ronnie Harrison was there, and then he got traded to the Browns, and then it was kind of like we didn't really know what was going to be happening, and then suddenly he just is there, and he's having a good game. So yeah, that was a great pick. What about you, Jake? You managed to snag any superstars off the waivers?
No superstars, but the one that I really liked the pickup for, and partly just because it goes back to what we were saying, where you're watching the game so much more intently. Here's a guy that I was watching, and it's Josie Jewell, linebacker for the Broncos. And it was maybe week 2 or 3, and he was just kind of, I don't know, he certainly wasn't on my radar, not that means anything, but I watched the game that he played, and I think it was the game against either Pittsburgh or Tampa Bay, and I don't recall which, but I was just like, oh, what's this dude doing? Like, he just seemed to be everywhere, making tackles or very close to the play. So I picked him up that week because I desperately needed some flex help there. And then he went off for like 30-some points the next week against the Jets. Because, of course,
there you go.
The Jets, nice. That's the only good game that he's had. Everything else has been super mediocre. But it's so rewarding to like have that pickup because of something you saw. And it's like, oh, that dude did it. Now he's kind of back to, I'm still holding on to him, I think, more for sentiment than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's a waiver flex guy that, put up 40 points. Like, that's a big win any week. So, yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I love that pick. That's a great example. He's a guy a lot of people talked about last year as maybe kind of being one of the starters for Denver, and then it was Todd Davis, and he had a good season, but he's I always call them bread and butter linebackers, which are just like boring linebackers that nobody knows about because they're just a guy. They're like jag linebackers, like Tahir Whitehead or Josie Jewell, but that's a great pickup. I picked him up after that week too in a couple of spots. Avery Williamson's another guy kind of like that, although Avery Williamson's got a little juice. He tore his ACL last year, but I picked up Alden Smith in that league. I picked him up, I think, after week 2 or 3. He hasn't done a lot since week 4, but that's kind of the nature of, defensive linemen. They either get home and they get you a whole bunch of points in 1 or 2 plays, or you just kind of hope that they get enough snaps to hit somebody once or twice. So what are you going to do? And I feel bad for the Cowboys. I don't feel right saying that, but man, talk about hard up. Like, they can't catch a break. They look so
That's
good.
brutal. Yeah, all around that whole situation is just such a train wreck to watch. And like, I thought that and Marvin, maybe you can speak to this too. I thought I'd be kind of happy about it because Mike McCarthy going over there as the head coach, and kind of watch him after like basically learning how to use an Excel spreadsheet and then bragging about it and getting a job with the Cowboys. Like, look, I'm Mr. Analytics now. And it's kind of nice to see it happen, but I do just feel bad for everybody involved there, man.
Yeah. That's rough. I hope he gets just a little more than just a year to coach there. It's tough when you lose Dak. It kind of, what are you going to do? And you lose Andy Dalton now too. I mean, that's rough.
That's the thing, though, is the fact that he lost Dak. It's probably going to keep him there longer than it should, unfortunately. What are you going to do? I'm not an NFL coach. All right, let's see here. Do you guys feel like watching football has become like a more holistic experience? We kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, but do you feel like you're more in tune with the ebbs and flows of a particular game or a particular team? Like, can you kind of say this team is bad, like a plus matchup defensively? Can you kind of spot those now? Like, say, okay, I kind of know a few guys on that team. There's some good players. Do you feel like you have just a better understanding of the game in general?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think you kind of get an idea of, well, first of all, there are so many defensive players out there that I didn't even know their names of, and now I do, which is awesome. And you just can pay attention to that a little more. And Jake alluded to this earlier, that you're actually paying attention to the names on the back of the jerseys for those players, the defensive players, that I'm actually making sure that, like, hey, is that linebacker actually in there? Because I want him to get that tackle. I want him to rush the quarterback and get that tackle for loss or sack or whatever it may be. And so you intuitively just look at that side of the field more often because you have a player that can get you fantasy points. Whereas before, it's like, oh man, well, Todd Gurley got tackled, but you didn't really care who it was. Now you do, and it just matters a tiny bit more, and it's kind of fun. And I just scroll through the games more often just to see and scroll even further down to find the defensive stats versus just going up to the offensive stats. So yeah, exactly. So
yeah, I don't know. I love watching it, like we're talking about, from both sides. I don't feel like I've gotten better at like being able to predict matchups for the defensive side still. I think I'm still I'm like obviously super novice here, but yeah, I just don't have that feel for it like I might for the offensive side of things. I think especially, I don't know, I guess if we're talking DBs, it's a little bit easier because it's really just reverse engineering from looking at your wide receivers, really. So, that part still takes a lot of work. Like, I take a lot more time setting my defensive side of the lineup than I do the offensive side, for sure. I don't know that I've also found like the best actionable stats for some of these things. Yeah. Like obviously you can look at box score and you can look at what they did, but I just don't know how to relate it all, you know?
Yeah, it can be tough. And that's, I wish I could say that I knew all the answers to a certain degree. That's kind of, again, part of the reason this league came into formation is because IDP is played a lot by people, but the content creators on that side of the ball doing, kind of what I do is there's a lot. It's not, there's not as many people doing it. So you don't have as many eyes on it, and there's not as many people studying it, which does make it, it is kind of lagging behind offense. There are some guys that have kind of found certain metrics that are indicative of certain things being successful. But most often people just use snap counts and snap percentages. Most people really, Calvin Ridley's limping. I'm going to start crying. No. But you guys might find something, that's the thing about IDP is it's kind of still like the Wild West of fantasy football. Like everybody's just kind of shooting at the hip, trying to figure it out. And I'm glad we got some more eyes on it. Some more guys like even, Jake, I love that story. You're like, I was like, this guy, Jesse Jewell, like, who's that all about? And then you pick him up and you play him. I'm like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like that feeling, like, and you remember those feelings on offensive side too. Like my first year playing fantasy, ever, I picked up Tyler Eifert. That was the year he had led the league in touchdowns. And I just I did all my draft and I'm sitting there. It's like Saturday morning. I'm reading an ESPN article and it's like, hey, Tyler Eifert, not owned. He might be good. I'm like, oh, I picked him up. And I was just like, that feeling is kind of what you chase in fantasy, like, aha, like I did it. Like I found something nobody else hit on. And when you get a deeper pool of players, it just becomes that much more of a hunt. It's like in putting those players all on the same roster and then beating everybody, it's definitely a fun experience. And I'm glad you guys, took time out of, I'm sure you guys are in a ton of leagues and you guys also have your own podcasts and your own shows and do a lot of writing and, ranking and stuff and interact with the community. I'm really appreciative that you both, took time to join this league and have taken it seriously and, put some time and thought and effort into it. And it's been fun to, just play against you. Like the last message I sent to our group chat, I was just looking was suck it, Jake. So I guess that was this week that we played. It wasn't 2 weeks ago. So,
I love that. No, and that's what's been so cool about it for me personally is like, I just didn't know what to expect. It's a whole new world. And the draft itself was this whole, whole other can of worms for me. Like I just trying to keep my brain on top of what was happening there. And that's, that's tough. But as the season progresses too, it's just so cool to be able to turn to that league when I'm setting my lineups or looking at waivers or whatever. It's just nice to be able to tune in a different part of your brain for once. Because also part of it is like, yeah, I'm in a whole bunch of leagues and you're doing pretty much the same thing in every league, unless maybe there's some other strange offensive quirk to it. It's just nice to be able to turn the focus a little bit because it's almost re-energizing.
Amen. I love that.
Yeah, for sure. I think I spend more time on researching defensive players nowadays than I do offensive sometimes, especially with setting waivers. I think I've used, like the looking at different stats more than I do because I just don't know these guys as well. And I think that's the fun of it is just kind of starting new and just relearning fantasy football almost in a sense. You're kind of starting from zero. And I think that's the fun of it is just kind of learning and getting better at it. And, if you've been playing offensive fantasy football for a while, it might come naturally to you and you might not have that, willingness or just the urge to research every week, for your waivers. But for this league, I have to. And it's kind of one of those things where it's just kind of fun to figure out who scored the most points and who's averaging the most points or tackles or sacks, whatever it might be, deflected passes, all that good stuff. So
yeah, it's kind of cool. It's a puzzle, and it's almost like cooking, it's like your team and every league is different. I only play in 2, I think, or 3 offense only leagues, and I'm in almost 20 leagues. And it's like those leagues to me are it's almost like playing in black and white. And it's like all my other leagues, all my IDP leagues are like playing in color. It's kind of like playing in a one quarterback, and then you're like in a super flex, and you're like, why the hell would I ever play in a one quarterback league? It's just like, I'm glad you guys are kind of getting that enriched feeling of fantasy. And like you said, it's a puzzle. It's putting together a team of guys that you're like, okay, like my offense sucks this week. Like I'm starting Mecole Hardman and Randall Cobb, but you're like, oh wait, like I also have Myles Garrett chilling down here, and I snagged Blake Martinez, and you're like, I can still float this team. Like I have a shot, against the guy who has Julio and Tahir Whitehead or whatever. So I'm glad you guys have, found that part of the game interesting. It definitely, it's more variables. That's the thing about fantasy. The more variables you get in there, the more strategies you can have. The more, like you said, waiver claims. If in your offensive leagues, it's Giovanni Bernard, it's Boston Scott, and we're all going to fight over it. But, in a league, it's like, okay, like this guy has 2 Bills linebackers. Okay, like he's in trouble this week. Okay, who's he going to pick up? All right, like who got dropped last week? It's just a whole nother like gear of fantasy. So I'm glad that you guys have both kind of found that and have enjoyed it too. And I knew you would. I mean, like I said, every time I tell somebody, I'm like, once you play in a well formatted, I always say well formatted, because there are some IDP leagues that are garbage and not fun. I'm in 1 or 2 of those too. But I'm like, when you do it right, you'll never, like, you just can't, like I said, it's like watching Black and White to go to my offense only leagues and see like 7 guys. I'm like, oh, like you guys are here. Great.
So I'm curious, what does a bad IDP league look like?
A bad IDP league would be an IDP league with 3 to 5 starters or less. And it would be, the scoring would be like 1 point per tackle, 1 point per sack, 1 point per pass deflection, 1 or 2 points for a forced fumble, 3 points for interception. It just keeps like a high scoring IDP week would be like 10 points, like a high scoring week. So then it's like you can never, like your ceiling for your offensive players is so much higher that it just makes your defensive players completely irrelevant. It's like if I play a super stud, he's going to get me 12. If I play literally a guy who sucks, he's going to get me 6. What's the difference between 6 and 12? Nothing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I call them IDP suppressed leagues. And then also the other thing too is whenever you don't have enough starters, it really just kind of makes where everybody can just kind of start a bunch of studs, and there's no real engagement. It's just like you kind of do what you do. But when you put more players in, so you get like 6, 7, 8, it makes it more scarce. So 2 linebackers from this team, one of them's not on waivers and one on a team, they're both going to be rostered somewhere because they're both going to be valuable because of the number you need to start. So just a poorly formatted league would be one, like I said, like really low scoring, very rudimentary scoring. Some, like ours, has a lot. Some literally only do tackles and sacks.
Oh, wow.
Like, yeah. So like you can have games where guys get a point. And I mean, you can get that in any other league, but that guy might have a tackle for loss and an interception, and he might not even get a score. Like it's wild. Like, and there's a whole meta conversation being had. Well, I'm having it. I don't know if anybody else is, about IDP scoring in general and formatting. And part of the reason people don't play IDP is because there is no like true north in IDP. There is no set rules. There is no set format that people all speak on and engage on in the same way and on the same wavelength, which is kind of, like I said originally, the thought process behind this league is the more people like you guys, content creators, even if it just comes up in casual conversation and you're working from this frame of reference, that's going to help IDP tremendously, because someone that listens to you guys or respects you guys is playing in an IDP league for sure. I mean, like there's more people doing it than you would think. And, I'm sure they would be interested in your opinions and takes. And the more voices that come in, the more conversations that are had about different players, the more point of views. Maybe somebody says, hey, Buda Baker sucks. All right, well, let's hash it out. Like, let's figure it out. Maybe you're wrong, but another voice in IDP, any new voice in IDP is a good thing, I think. So the more people that are engaging with it, the better.
I actually had a conversation today about starting a dynasty league sometime this offseason. I was like, let's do an IDP dynasty league. Let's just do it. Instead of just doing a standard Superflex league. I think that's just, I don't know if I would have thought of that 5 months ago before you invited me to this league. Like now that's just in my head, where it's something, it just adds another level of excitement, another element to the game, which, would be kind of fun. Another set of players for dynasty. So
I'm telling you, you'll never, like I said, I'm in like 18 or 20 leagues. I don't know, 18, 19, 20. Only 2 of them are offense only. And it's just like, once I started my first IDP league, I was like, wow, like it's just, I don't know. Like I said, it's black and white.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, last little bit here we're going to talk, some dynasty stuff. And guys, if you're still listening, appreciate it. Subscribe to the show, hit the bell, leave a review, all that good stuff. My rankings, I'll have a little link in the YouTube comments and in the show description on the, podcasting platforms and all that. So that's usually what I do on the show is rankings. But, since you guys are here, screw it, who needs them? So we're going to talk some dynasty trades. We're each going to kind of walk through a recent dynasty trade we did thought process behind it, maybe where you're at in that league. And yeah, so I'll just kind of kick it off because I did one the other day. Might have been kind of reactionary, but I don't care. Chase Claypool looks legit, and I want that. And so one of the guys in my league, and it was after his 40-point game. I literally, as this game, I'm sitting here and my TV's right here, and I'm watching this game. My whiteboard is right here. So I'm sitting here and Claypool scores. It's like, he looks good. He looks good. He scored again. And I've got my pen out, and I wrote a note. I said, trade for Claypool in week 7. I was like, we'll let this all die down. Then he scored 2 more times. I was like, trade for Claypool now. Like, go get Claypool right now. Like, I don't care. So the guy I'm in 2 dynasty leagues with him, and he has Claypool in both of them. Well, he doesn't want to give him up one. But the other one, we started talking, I gave him Darrell Henderson, and I gave him oh my gosh, I'm blanking out. Was it Mike Williams? Oh my goodness, I need to double check that. I gave him Darrell Henderson and somebody else for Claypool, and can't believe I can't remember it because I did another dynasty trade. That's why I'm thinking about Mike Williams. I sent Mike Williams and Kenyon Drake for DJ Moore last week. That was the other trade I was going to bring up. I almost feel bad about that one now because Kenyon Drake is broken. Sure. That's not my fault, but I'm really glad that he broke on someone else's team.
He was going to be broken stat-wise by about week 10, let's be honest. Anyways, the downward trend was happening.
He has like the 3rd or 4th most rushing yards in the league right now. I noticed, or something. I saw Andy had tweeted, or Jason Moore tweeted out from the Footballers. I noticed that the other day. I was looking on sometimes just ESPN. They just have a very basic thing you can look at, and he was up there. Todd Gurley also way up there. Oh my gosh, did Curtis Samuel just score again? Okay, no, he didn't. Ooh, that's from earlier.
That would have been ridiculous. I would have rioted.
All right, well, you guys tell me one of the trades that you guys have done in Dynasty recently. I'm sorry, I forgot. I thought I remember this trade, and for whatever reason, I'm blanking right now. So talk me through one of your recent Dynasty trades and why you did it. Marv, you can just go first.
Sure. So this is one I did a couple days ago. I am currently first in this league, so I'm trying to go for it. But I lost Dak, and it's a super flex league. So I'm here scrambling at quarterback, need someone to get in. And I thought, well, why not get younger and see if I can get someone like Tua? So the trade that eventually happened was Tua, Swift, and Brandon Ayuk, and I traded away Dak Prescott, Myles Gaskin, CeeDee Lamb, and Anthony McFarland. So it's multiple pieces, and it hurt me to get rid of Dak and Lamb, but I'm personally really optimistic about Swift, just what we've seen so far, his PPR upside, and I just really wanted a piece of Tua on any of my rosters because I don't have him anywhere. I'm just excited to see him play, and hopefully he doesn't get destroyed by Aaron Donald by come Sunday, but he might just have a good game, and honestly, I just want to be able to root for him. I love his story and that he's back, but to have him on my dynasty team, I'm looking forward to that. Now I lost Dak, which kind of hurts, but I needed a startable quarterback, and I'm hoping that this is kind of the combination of youth and production that I can rely on going forward. And I don't know, I felt iffy about it, but you know what they say, if you feel questionable about it, I guess it's a good trade. I don't know.
I don't hate it.
You can be honest though. You can rip me apart if you want.
I hate giving up Lamb and Dak, but for this season, they're dust. They're not going to help you win a championship.
Yeah.
Tua and Gaskin can definitely do that. And who was the other big piece in that?
So I traded away Gaskin, but I got Swift and Ayuk.
Okay, you got Swift and Ayuk. Oh, yeah, Ayuk, yeah. Those guys will help you win this season. I like it. And the thing about trades like that, where I'm trading a guy away for the future, you can get him back. I mean, in the offseason, people get itchy, people get antsy.
Right.
Oh my gosh, I missed Lamb for 6 games. Welcome back to the squad. You're never leaving. Like you can make things like that happen, especially if you have a good trade partner, a guy that you have a good rapport with. I think I commented on one of your trade poll questions about that. Yeah. I have like 3 guys in one of my main leagues, and it's just like everything just filters through them. Like if I want somebody from someone else's team, they have to go get him first because that guy doesn't talk to me. Then we can talk, and
Yeah. Best part about this guy is he actually already traded Gaskin away. So he's one of those guys that likes to trade guys, doesn't really wait for it. So going after Lamb in the off season, we'll do it.
There you go. And he'll be ready to give him up.
Yeah.
What about you, Jake?
It's so funny because the trade that I was looking at, I've actually been in kind of a trade drought for the last couple of weeks, like across the majority of my leagues. And I've had this happen before. I do just feel like the first couple of weeks of the season, for sure, people are still really firing away with it. For whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to keep as consistent once it gets to this point. I think people are just like really comfortable, unless it's injury based. Most of the trades then come from injuries. So mine also came from a Dak injury. It's super flex league. I was already thin at quarterback because my situation coming in was I had Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott. Then it got iffy. I had Mitch Trubisky, Tyrod Taylor, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. So I figured between the three of those guys, though, at some point, I'd have a startable asset to fill in for bye weeks. And then now, of course, Fitz is done. Which is so sad. I feel so bad for Fitz. I love that we're going to get to see Tua. Don't get me wrong. I love it, but I feel just bad for Fitz. So anyways, it went from bad to worse there. And then once Dak went down, I picked up Andy Dalton, spent almost all of my fab because I was so desperate for a quarterback. And then Dalton goes down, and then I'm just completely screwed. I have no fab to spend. So I was like, all right, who's a reasonable quarterback I could go after? And the guy in this league was still undervaluing Cam, I felt like. So I traded for, and actually, I just put out that I was looking for quarterbacks, and he sent the initial trade offer, and it was an auto accept for me, which is very rare. But he just wanted Myles Gaskin, which I'm very deep at running back, so I could be fine with that. And then he just wanted a second-round pick in 2021 and a second-round pick in 2022. I was like, super flex league. I'm desperate for a quarterback. Yes, I'm not going to barter anymore on this. And then, of course, the first week that I started him was last week when Cam had that atrocious game. So I'm back to being nervous about my quarterback situation. I think he'll bounce back. But I'm honestly, now I'm looking, the Lamar Jackson manager is looking to maybe ship him away. So I might have to make another play for a quarterback.
Man, that's rough. Dude, quarterback this year has been, I mean, that's honestly been maybe the toughest position to navigate, like real talk. Like, and the guys who did, I mean, we knew Dak would be good, and we knew DK or Wilson would be good. Burrow, Herbert, and we knew Kyler would be good, but I don't think we expected him to be this good. But a lot of the guys that you kind of consider, your regular old, guys you can just plug in and play every week, like Baker would be okay, not good. Like, Dak going down, that kills you. Cam getting benched, that's not good. Trubisky, I mean, yeah, it's been a wild year for quarterback.
For sure.
I like that trade, though. Like, if you're desperate, go get Cam. And like you said, we're trying to win now. That's the kind of thing that I always try to win now. I try to be set up to win now. That trade I was telling you about earlier, it was Laviska Shenault and Darrell Henderson I sent for Claypool. So I just feel like, I'm like, look, if Claypool has a 40 point of upside, like playing like almost no snaps, then Deontay Johnson's falling apart, and James Washington is never really, he's just okay. And Juju is so hot and cold, and this guy's young. Like, he's not going anywhere. And Big Ben, only way I see him retiring this year is if he wins a Super Bowl, which I think they have a pretty good shot. But he might not. He's not that old. He's busted up, but he's not that old. And he looks pretty good this year. So I think that was a pretty good price for Claypool. What do you guys think? Henderson and Shenault for Claypool.
I think the upside definitely leans on the Claypool side. I don't know if I'm definitely not. It's only been one game. That last game was, one reception. Yeah. I don't know if that's any indication. I think he'll settle in somewhere, obviously in the middle. He's not going to be that low. I don't think ever again this year. But what I love about that is I think it's more, that's a dynasty league, right? So, I definitely think that Juju's not going to be there next year. So while this year I think he's going to give you some flex-worthy games, but I think his upside is wide receiver one. If he's the wide receiver one, the Steelers offense with Big Ben, I think that's upside is so massive. And with Juju not there next year, potentially, I think he's the guy. And I don't ever mind trading for someone after like a 40-point game, because I think it shows us exactly, 2 games. He's had a couple good games.
He had 2 big games in a row.
And that just shows you what his upside is. If we've seen that, we know what his ceiling can be. Like, I'm all in for that ceiling. And, Shenault's going to be great.
He will be good.
But I don't know if his upside well, if we have Trevor Lawrence then next year, that might change. But
that's next year though.
That's exactly. But I think the upside definitely leans on Claypool, and I love what we've seen from him. Don't have him on any of my dynasty teams, and I kind of regret that. So.
Yeah. I also regret that. I had Deontay Johnson, still do, on a few of my teams because I do love Deontay when he's healthy. But it's yeah, man. Like, there's no doubt that Chase Claypool can be the one there. What I really like about that trade is short term. I do like Henderson. Like this year, I actually do think he's being slept on. But for going forward, I don't think you can count on that. And the thing with Shenault is he's such a project, or at least I feel like he's such a project. You were just talking about how you'll get that guy back. Like, you'll have an opportunity to trade for Shenault again. No problem this offseason, I think. I don't think you're going to have to worry about him going and blowing up quite like, Claypool did by the end of this year. So, yeah, I just really like that.
Bingo. All right, good. Well, that makes me feel good about that trade. Some of the guys in my league like, oh, you gave up too much. You only had one game. I'm like, but like, what has Darrell Henderson done? I mean, he had a couple of okay games, but he's a Rams running back. Like, I just got a Pittsburgh wide receiver who's 22 years old. Like let's look at this. Let's take a step back from like this week and let's like look at this dynasty that I'm building over here. So, yeah. All right. Well, that's pretty much all the talking points I have for tonight. You guys want to hit on anything else? You want to plug any stuff? You want to, I don't know, anything else you want to do before we close this whole thing out?
First of all, thank you so much for having us. And first of all, thanks for inviting us to this league. Like, it's been an awesome experience. So I'm definitely enjoying it. Looking forward to more IDP sometime in the near future. But yeah, you guys can always find me on Twitter. So just find me there. Feel free to DM me, ask questions, interact with me. I love doing that. And can always find my weekly article. It comes out for the fantasy footballers on Wednesdays, Dynasty Report. So, yeah.
Diggity.
Yeah, man. Seriously, thanks for having us on. This was fun. I'm sorry I missed the first one right after the draft. I was really excited about that. And then I forget whatever BS came up where I wasn't able to make that one. But
a wedding.
That's the stupid wedding. Dude, first of all, going to a wedding during COVID season is the weirdest, creepiest thing you can possibly do. Like, I don't care what haunted house you think you're going to go to this Halloween. That will best it, but it won't. I promise you. It was so awkward. So I much rather would have been analyzing the draft with you guys. But no, I've had such a blast. Like I said, just like doing the extra research and setting lineups for this league. And no, I don't want to put too fine of a point on it, but our matchup, Jordan, it was extra heightened. Like, now wait, I have to take this one very seriously. Like, this is the dude who set up the league, who is the IDP guy in the league. So dude, you had me at my absolute best. Like, I could not have put any more time into that week if I could have tried.
Hey, you won. There you go. That was a great matchup. I was really excited about it. I'm glad you got a win. I just love playing fantasy football and talking shit. I mean, that's the fun. That's really where it gets fun. But
for sure, yeah. Speaking of talking shit, that's basically all I do on Twitter. So at Jake Trowbridge, that's basically. I don't even know if I have analysis anymore at this point. It's just
who needs it, man?
Mid-season blues, just talking trash.
There's so many other guys doing that anyway. Who needs it?
Marvin can take care of it for me.
There you go. Marv's got a suit and tie on.
You'll do the impressions. We love those. Those are awesome. So
dude, you're killing those. You're killing those.
I'll keep up that, and you keep up the actual diligent work.
Excellent. All right. Well, IDP Army, you heard it here. We have a good time with IDP. You should too. Join an IDP league. Thank you guys again for coming on and joining the league. It's been a good show. And until next week, IDP Army, like I said, idparmy.com. You guys can find the rankings there. Hope you enjoyed this show, and I'll be back next week. Adios.